So before we start working on the car, I wanted to add some sounds to kind of give us indication of the speed that we're going and kind of make it more interesting for driving the actual car. So I have some sound engine loops, and you can find, I'm sure you can find some free samples of this, but I have basically loops of the engine in different phases, so we can hear it in here. And basically I'm going to combine them to create the engine sound. So first let's start with selecting. I'm actually going to use just these 5. We don't even need the 6th one. Let's click right click and then create single queue. Now let's name this engine sound queue. Now let's open it up, and now we have these 5 loops in here. We don't need this random, and let's set all of them to looping. Now that we have all of these 5 in here, what we're going to do is modulate them over time. So let's add this. It is called continuous modulator, and for everything we're going to use just one parameter to modify them basically, and it will be our RPM. So let's open this up, and these are kind of our parameters, but what we actually care about is just our pitch modulation, and we're going to change this through RPM. So RPM is just going to be our parameter name, and then we're going to use it later in the blueprints to actually modify the sound. Now let's connect this in here first, and let's just set some default values. And first we want minimal output to always be 1, we never want it to be 0, and we can increase this to, let's say, 1.3. And this is kind of enough for now. Now that we have that, let's just duplicate our continuous modulator. And let's just connect them together. Now what we need to do is just change these settings a bit different for each engine loop. So for this one, we are going to set max input to 500. So only from the 500, and let's do 4500. So only from 500 it will start to modify our output. And the reason for this is that as we increase, so if I go in the vehicle here, if we increase our max RPM, we want the engine sounds to kind of fade from one to another and then get pitched up and down, but we don't want it to start pitching from, if you're in the higher RPMs, we don't want it to pitch from the lower RPM, if that makes sense. And in here I also changed 2 things just to make it work a bit better for this car, since default values make the car a bit too slow. So I added this torque curve, which goes from 0 to 400, and then we have some modulation, or for 0 to 7000, and with the value to up to, I think, 600 or something. And we also have our max torque set to 500 and then a max RPM to 7000. And this will be important later when we work in our sound queue. So we set it up in here. The next thing that we need is the third one. So let's do, now we're kind of almost multiplying it. So let's do 1200 and 6000. The third one we can do maybe 2400, and let's do it at 7000. And the last one will be if we just kind of go overboard. So we can do, let's say, 3700 to, let's say, 16,000. So this will probably never happen, but we can just leave it there. If it does, that we have the solution for that also. Now that we have this set up, next we need crossfade by parameter. So we're going to use the same parameter, which is RPM, to basically fade from one sound to another. So let's connect everything. And now that we have connected this, let's connect the output also. And now this should be fine. You can see if I click space, we can hear it, and we can also change, if you want to test this before use, we can also change this default value on each of them, and then we can actually hear the sound. So you could do this and then change default, and you can see the speed up. This is kind of, if you want to test. Now when we crossfade, it won't be possible to test, it'll just everything will activate, but yeah, we're going to change that in here. So yeah, the next thing that we need to do is just change the parameters that are in our crossfade. So if we click on the crossfade and click in here, input, let's open all of these up. And now we can change the settings in here. So first, we want these two to be the 0, but then with this value, we want to be 1000. And this is all for the first input. Of course, we're going to change this for the other ones. Now let's set this to 4000. We will also change the volume later, but let's first go through these RPMs. Now let's say we are in the 500 to 1000 RPM range. We would want this to be 2000 to 4000. So these are kind of fade-ins and yeah, crossfades. So in between here, we are going to need these values to go. So they're kind of blend together to kind of, yeah, have smooth fall. So you don't want to just swap from one sound to another. It won't sound good. But then we will also have to decrease the volume, since when we are crossfading, if you have like 2 or 3 sounds crossfading, you don't want like 2x or 3x the volume. So we're going to also do that. So now let's go to the second one. In here, we need this one to be 1000 or 2000. Then we can make this one, let's say 3800 to 5000. And let's see, value index 3. We can do 1500 to 2500. And then we need in here 5000 to 6000. And the last one, let's put it to, so we had it, okay, so we had 1500, so let's do 2500 and then 3500. And for this, let's do 6000 to 8000, even if our RPM is 7000, just to have it in case it overworks. And this last one, let's leave it to 1. But we can do 0.6 on this one. Let's do 0.5 here, 0.5 here, and let's do 0.4 in here. So now that we have this engine sound, we need to add a sound in here. So let's click in here and type sound. And actually, we don't need media sound. We need audio. And we have already engine sound queue added, since we have it selected in the content browser, but we can of course click on the drop down and yeah, use it. So now if I right click and add event tick, we are going to use this for our for basically changing the audio, since we want this to update on every tick. Now let's add our engine sound queue and let's set float parameter. Let's see. Okay, let's use this one. I'm not sure what is this interface one. Let's set it this and let's do RPM. So now that we have the reference, let's type get speed and then we need get forward speed. Now if you connect this and we compile and save, we can click play and we should see the engine working.